Good evening. Welcome to Let's Talk Maywood on Diversity Today Media. I am your host, Dr. Reggie Ratliff, and joining me is my co-host, my co-laborer in the vineyard, and expert investment advisor, Terrence Hollinsworth. Terry, are you there?
Yes, Dr. Ratliff, I am here. How are you?
I'm good, my brother. How are you?
I'm good. It's another day in the neighborhood, as they say, right? Got interest rate hike today, 0.25%. Probably the last one for the years, at least for the foreseeable future. And we just keep going every day, right?
Well, I saw in the news that the Federal Reserve did push interest rate now above 5% for the first time since what they say 2007. That was right before the housing crisis. So
Yeah.
what's going on with that?
So we're stuck in this place of just you know the I almost want to say we're resetting, right?
Mm,
So we had COVID where we had this bottleneck of things, and as you know, the retail companies were trying to get caught up because they bought this inventory, and then by the time they got the inventory, it was outdated,
mm, mm.
and so then they had to discount it because they were buying new inventory, and at the corporate level, what they found was they end up having too much staff. So almost across the board, mid-level managers are, being laid off and things like this. And so we're just kind of, pausing and resetting in the economy. Unfortunately, what that meant is that interest rates went higher, and people that could afford homes at one point now are not can't afford them anymore,
Mhm.
and that's that. So
Yeah. I mean, do you think that JP Morgan Chase taking over Republic Bank also has something to do with what's going on in the world of finance, or is that like a separate matter?
no, it says something though. What's different between 2008 and 2023, where we at now, is before all of the big banks didn't have enough cash. The federal government literally had to come in and provide them with liquidity and stuff. And now J.P. Morgan and some of the larger banks, they're able to come in and rescue some of these regional banks.
Right.
And there's a lot of money flowing within the large banks. So
Mm,
that's a positive.
yeah.
But we're still in a place where, uh, uh, truthfully, a lot of people don't understand the intricate details of why these things happen. They just kind of know I go to work every day,
Right.
and
Right.
you know, um, I'm hoping to retire one day. Except for they're probably not putting enough money away, right? And that's kind of what we need to do is to keep it encouraging people to, hey, it matters, and put that money away.
Well, it makes sense though, because when you look at, all the, well, in addition to this, to take over the banks, and then you got the layoffs from, Morgan Stanley, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, Goldman Sachs, Lyft, Twitter. I mean, there's a lot of cost cutting measures by these large corporations. So, speak to that. How does that look for you as a expert advisor in the world of finance?
Well, the funny thing about it is, contrary to what it seems like, but companies generally, if they announce a layoff, stock is going higher. Why? Because
Mm-hmm.
mostly the largest expense that a company will have is labor. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you can cut labor, then you can increase your margins and all these other things. But let's talk about real quick education lesson,
Yeah.
because a lot of times they'll say two things: Federal Reserve is increasing interest rates or lowering interest rates,
Right.
and then the Fed funds rate is going to be a certain way. So
Yeah.
today, Fed funds moves to 5%.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean? So this is kind of stuff that we talk about in our class, in the master class.
Yeah.
But the impact of the Fed funds rate is basically a base rate. So Fed funds, how do I put this? It is the base rate in which banks charge the prime rate. And so the prime rate is basically for their prime customers, their best customers, customers with the highest credit scores and things like that, least amount of risk. And so prime rate plus roughly 3% on top of whatever the prime rate is what you should expect to pay for long-term things like mortgages. It can climb as much as 9% if you're talking about, good credit card, right?
Yes.
And so, that's what that Fed funds rate means,
Right.
because it directly affects the prime rate. So think about it in this way: the average house in America is $400,000, right?
Not in DC, but yeah.
Right, y'all got that expensive real estate out there, right?
Man. Yeah.
But $400,000, and since they started raising rates, the mortgage payment has gone from $1,400 to about $2,300. That's a big gap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why people, when you think about qualifying for a mortgage, which is 32% of your income,
yeah,
why it's making people not be able to afford mortgages. It's the reason why you see, home sales declining, price of homes are declining, because there's a direct correlation between the rate and the monthly payment and what people can afford, or at least I should say what they can qualify for.
Well, let me ask you this one quick question. Getting to Maywood, everything you just said really, begs the question. In Maywood, the average home is not $400,000. But yet it's a working class community. But a lot of the property taxes for those homeowners who do live in Maywood goes to our schools and services, mostly schools.
Yeah.
How do they improve that, or are you going to say something different? I'm just curious because you put that out there in the atmosphere.
Yeah, I'm going to say this, that Chicago. The reason why so many people are leaving Illinois is because they said that not they. It's expensive to do business in Illinois. To get a business license, I think last I knew it was like $150, right? And you can go to a place like Delaware and get it for $50, right?
Yeah.
Maywood, the grocery store that left, they said the reason why they left was because of the rapid increase of their property taxes over, I think, a 3-year period. And so, unfortunately, revenues from governments come from taxes. And so either government has to start thinking differently about how they build their budgets out, or they need to have some fiscal responsibility and really work within the budget, not raise property taxes and run government on really a smaller budget. Now that sounds really Republicanish, but it's just business, right?
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that with our next guest, the newly reelected trustee of Maywood, Miguel Jones. So it's going to be that and others we're going to talk about in this this segment on this podcast. So thanks for the insight, my brother. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Well, it was nice talking to everybody. I will see you guys next week.
Thank you, as always, Brother Terrence, the expert investment advisor. I would like to bring on our guest for this evening. He is a newly reelected village trustee, Miguel Jones, and we're happy to have him back for a third time. So we know that he has interest in the community. Anytime we ask him to come on, he comes on, and we greatly appreciate it. And without further ado, Trustee Jones. How you doing, Trustee Jones?
Dr. Ratliff, I am doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm good, my brother. I almost gave you dual responsibilities, man. I said village manager and
Right,
trustee.
right.
Yes.
I wish I was getting a village manager check, but no, just
Understood. But
trustee.
you provide invaluable service. So thank you for your agreeing to serve the community for another term, and again taking the time to come us this podcast to join me with issues regarding Maywood.
No problem. Happy to.
Absolutely. So let's get started, Trustee Jones. I want to ask you first, since you've been reelected, I know your swearing ceremony is coming up in later this month on the 30th of May, right?
Correct.
So as you prepare to get back to work to pick up from where you left off, what is the vision for you as you see it for the village of Maywood?
Well, I think as far as being a young elected official,
I think we lost him for a moment. Terry, did he drop off? Okay, there he is.
oh,
Trustee
am
Jones.
I
Yeah,
here? Okay.
yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So, what I was going to say is, I think as being, as far as being a young second term official, I can't think of a better time to be in government advocating for the village of Maywood and communities like Maywood. The vision is really simple. It's to improve the quality of life for our residents, and to do that in a efficient way, a cost-saving way, in a thoughtful way, as well. So, what does that look like? I think about our brand first and foremost. What is our brand, and is that conducive to the direction that we want to go? And then after that, our job is to advocate, for resources and to create the conditions in which businesses and potential residents and current residents want to continue to invest in the community and live here. And so there's a few ways to do that. And, I can speak to those if you want me to now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So when I think about our brand, our community, the village of Maywood is a riverfront community, six right off the Des Plaines River in the Proviso Township. Beautiful location, beautiful history. And we need to learn how to, have that be our economic driver. Some of the things that we have by us, our expressway, our proximity to the airports, Midway and O'Hare, our location to one of the more well-known and best hospitals in the land, like Ola Hospital, the universities that we have around us, or colleges, Triton, Dominican, Concordia. I think we have to embrace our identity, how diverse we are. We have to embrace those things and figure out what we could do to utilize that to create the conditions that we want. One of the things that I see in particular is, as far as like a rebranding strategy, I believe Maywood could be a prominent college town for college students. Maywood, in terms of rentability, is probably going to be the most affordable location in our region. For college students, I think it's a great opportunity to bring them into the community and bring some young, youthfulness. And I think that also will drive some interest on the development side as well. Once developers and people, investors, start to realize that we are committed to bringing in, that type of, population, that's going to give us even more incentive to, or, put us in a better position to, get things like grocery stores, get things like coffee shops and fiber and install so we can have high-speed internet. Right. And those things that we're seeing in 2023 as far as vibrant town. So I think that's one unique way we can do that. And then lastly, I say lean on our tourism. There's like so much history that we have in this community, and our neighbors to the east, Oak Park, they do that well. They get millions of dollars a year in sales taxes and in tourism, hotel fees and so forth for people coming to see the Frank Lloyd Wrights and the Ernest Hemingways and the Betty Whites and, their architecture. And Maywood has very similar architecture as far as homes in our community. Yes. We have the, chairman, Fred Hamptons that are, from the village of Maywood, and the Doc Rivers and the countless athletes and people that have excelled in the academia space and the political space, and the business space. And so we have to utilize that and really show that we're really an incubator for success.
Yes,
That has
indeed.
been our story, but we don't explain it that way, and people will want to invest in that if we market it well.
It reminds me of the rich history that Maywood has. You mentioned not just athletes. Miss Johnson, she being a graduate of Irvin Elementary School, the first Black female billionaire before Oprah Winfrey. And you talk about even football players, entertainers, John Pine, the late John Pine. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Greg Foster, the former, late track Olympian. I mean, there's so many names, so many lists that we can talk about. And, in that same vein with the vision, I wonder if the rest of the board shares the vision that at least that you've shared with us this evening, Trustee Jones, because I know that you ran on the same ticket as Isaiah Brandon, right, and Miss Rachel Montgomery. What about the rest of your colleagues? Are they in sync with moving Maywood forward in that direction?
Well, we'll have to see and find out. I think the drivers of what the direction the board should go should be the direction the community wants to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the first step is the community buying into that vision,
Right.
and then letting their representatives know, hey, we want investments and we want policy that encourage these type of initiatives. So I wouldn't foresee a board member not thinking that's a good idea to lean on some of the things that I spoke about in terms of how our community can move forward. But there are different methods on how we do that, and how people work together with our partners. I think that has to be spelled out because, organizations of our size, of our magnitude, they operate in a very sophisticated way. They're data driven. We should be experts of our community. We should represent our community well. And so the way we build those relationships are going to, be the conduit, if you will, in terms of if we'll be able to see that come into fruition. Yes, so, leadership in the community will decide if ultimately that's the direction that they want to go. But that's going to be the one in which I'm going to be advocating for. I think it's the most sustainable. And I think it's the one that we can look at data in our region and to see that it has brought success. So I think, you don't have to recreate the wheel. You learn from your neighbors. And we're fortunate to have some great neighbors in terms of communities that, are doing well. So it's a mixed bag of things that we could do on our own, but then also, we have to advocate for resources. And I believe we're going to get it.
Absolutely. And in just that same vein, Ms. Rouse asked the question, can it be added to the agenda to start Maywood Pace bus back up for the seniors so they have a way to get around? I'm not sure if that was something that was discussed for future items, Trustee Jones, but you want to answer that question?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with the Pace bus being discontinued for the seniors. So what I can do is, I can look into that. I think the best person to probably start with would be our community engagement manager, Miss Lysandra Banks. Mm-hmm. She'd be the first place to kind of start with understanding, okay, what is going on with that, and she'll be able to point you in the right direction. Also, I'm the co-chair of our community engagement committee, so we could put that on our agenda at our next meeting and see if we can get to the bottom of what are the transportation opportunities for our seniors, for the ones that need rides to and from different locations.
Does Larry Shapiro still work close with the village in terms of providing services for seniors and things of that nature?
Yeah, I know Larry still is connected with the seniors heavily. I think the format in which it was done in the past is a little different. I believe the Maywood, in terms of the partnership with the village of Maywood, I believe that's shifted over to the Maywood Park District as far as like our senior activities. Okay. However, I do know Mrs. Shapiro is still involved on the grounds and is still connected with our residents with whatever capacity in which he's able to do that.
Yeah, he's been doing it for a long time. Bless his heart, and thanks for answering that question. I want to get back to the economic aspect. You talked about collaboration. I know that you've had some initiatives that move forward with the Mayor of Broadview, the Mayor of Bellwood, River Forest, things of that nature. Is that something that you plan to continue doing to help rebrand Maywood and also create economic development opportunities?
Yeah, so I believe the first step is the village has to get comfortable with what our what I would call our retail profile is. So a lot of mid-sized businesses or some of these major grocery store and major businesses, they type in your zip code on their operational side, and you come back with a profile, and it assesses how risky you are. And so we have to understand our own profile as it relates to our reputation and what the data says to the business community, and so we can tackle our issues head on. I think that's the first step, and those type of things are going to look at average household income, crime rate in your community, population, racial
Right.
demographics and those type of things. So we have to understand that. Okay, so what are they looking for? And then what can Maywood do to brand ourselves where which we may likely fall as a risky community according to their profile, what can we do to offset those things? And that takes partnerships.
Yeah.
That takes getting our business community involved through our partners like the Maywood Chamber of Commerce, different entities that can help lead those conversations on our behalf.
Yes.
I think we have to really lean on our partners because these conversations don't happen by happenstance.
Sure.
We see a lot of success, at the regional level. So, from our neighbors like Merrill's Park and Oak Park and Broad,
Westchester and all them.
Westchester.
Yeah.
So, we have to build our relationships and figure out how we can fit into our region, because there's nothing better for someone that, whether it be a community or a homeowner,
Right.
for your neighbors to do well.
Right.
That's always important in terms of your sustainability, but then also, whether it be traffic count and those type of things, it all correlates into how your region is thought about. So, so I think those are unique opportunities. And then, we still have to deal with the big elephants in the room, like the property tax issue is a huge barrier, which, also, is something that we have to address, but it doesn't just involve the village of Maywood.
Right.
So we have to that needs to be a coordinated effort, and that's what, again, it's going to take partnerships. But ultimately, we do know that we need to be, we need to get properties back on the tax roll, not just homes, but retail properties. And then lastly, our strategic plan. We have to be intentional. We have to document the things in which we say we want to accomplish. We have to get buy-in, and strategic plans. Although they're not the end-all be-all, you need to have that. Those sophisticated organizations have those type of things. People that want to invest in your community are going to want to see those type of documents to be able to read, as in terms of how they fit into your community in the direction that it's going. So all of those moving parts are needed to have sustainable growth.
Trustee Jones, do you realize, you don't know the answer, the millions of dollars that leaves the village to go to grocery stores because there aren't one in Maywood, going to Jules and Merrill's Park or an Aldi's in another community, or going, to the DuPage County or even in the city. I mean, all that money is leaving Maywood and, preventing economic development opportunities. But then there's also this Kroger, the distribution center, right on 19th and Maywood Drive. So what can be done to create a partnership with them to build a Kroger in Maywood, for example? What, if anything?
Right. Well, I think that partnership, ultimately we want to accomplish getting fresh produce in our community, access to fresh produce. And we've had what I would consider baby steps there. So for instance, you can do online orders through Kroger / Mariano's online, and they will deliver in the village of Maywood. So I do want to make that clear. But that's only a portion of our population that will tap into that. We have seniors that aren't going to order their groceries online. We have other people that they don't trust putting their credit card information into apps or on websites. Some people like to see and touch their groceries and just do it themselves. So that is one option, but the goal is ultimately to not only get a grocery store in our community, but to have a thriving business corridor. You mentioned something about grocery stores and money coming out of the village of Maywood. Like when we think about it in general, even communities that have, access to most of those essential things, they still find reasons to go to other places to do other stuff, because that's just how we are as people. Like we like to switch it up.
Mhm.
And so Maywood has to figure out what would be our opportunities in terms of where we are located regionally, where people would say, okay, that's unique to Maywood. Let me go there and get those type of things. So
Yeah.
we have to have a heightened focus on, on those type of businesses.
Right.
Because you have to be strategic. If you build the same grocery store that is in Merrill's Park, that may or may not, be, effective business strategy.
Yeah.
So you have to be creative in that regard, or in terms of, and that's also what the business community talks about as well. And then lastly, our brand within the business community. I think when developers, the history of developers and business owners in terms of wanting to develop in Maywood has been, it hasn't been great. There's been certain, vacant properties in our community that have been vacant for a very long time. And it's not because there hasn't been interest.
Right.
We have not shown a great history of knowing how to get business done.
Right.
And, part of it has to do with, the types of businesses that are coming in. A lot of it has to do with, I guess there not being clarity on our strategic plan, what should be in these places. And so when they're brought to the table, really, it should really be set up for us for it to be successful.
Absolutely.
So when that doesn't happen and whatever, we would look at our processes and say, okay, what was unclear of how we got to a point of almost closing the deal and not doing it.
Right.
So you got to do your homework as well, and you have to be, your reputation amongst the business community needs to be solid. Those same people talk, just like all the doctors in the community, know each other.
Yeah.
All the people that cut hair know each other. That's the same thing in the business community. All developers know each other.
Absolutely.
And so word gets out about how hard or easy it is to get business permits, how hard or easy it is to deal with the board and some of these things. So we have to consider those things as far as why we're not seeing some of the results that we are. But at the end of the day, if you can demonstrate that businesses can be profitable in the community and safe, and they're in a community that has integrity, there'll always be opportunities. But we have to make sure that that's the message that we're getting out.
So in other words, we have to be able to clean what's inside our own community before we start to invite others to partner with the village or bring in businesses. We have to take care of our own business internally, right?
Well, I think we got to do both at the same time. I think that's what time it is in our community. Ideally, you want to take care of yourself first and then, do this. But the way opportunities work, you don't have all day, right? So it's about, you got to have leaders that can encourage both. We got to be building partnerships and also addressing our internal issues. That's just how sophisticated communities and organizations and engaged communities are able to do it. It's not easy, but it's possible. And it's possible if, people are communicating and working together. I think it starts at the micro level, with block clubs and, connecting with people at, different events and sharing information and holding each other accountable. But that's a house by house, block by block type of thing. And then it works its way up.
I believe in the asset-based community development model, building a community from the inside out, which was laid forth decades ago by John McKnight. And, that really works because you're building infrastructure internally. But like you said, by simultaneously building relationships with external stakeholders. So I like what you're saying, build it from micro level to expand also at the same time at the macro level. But I want to just ask, you mentioned leadership. Why isn't leadership talking about a feasibility study? Why isn't there a discussion about a strategic plan? Why isn't there even a discussion about addressing short-term goals and dealing with the barriers that exist to achieve short-term goals? for example?
Sure. So, I mean, just to be clear, the Village of Maywood has participated in several studies, throughout, let's say, over the past 10 years. There's probably been about 6 or 7 studies done in relation to, what is the ideal scenario for the Village of Maywood in terms of what our community looks like, from a planning perspective, from a culture perspective, and what we could do to get the best out of our community, whether it be land usage or out of our residents, out of our natural resources, and so forth. So I think in order, what you have to do, you have to invest in, or you have to commit to pursuing those strategies. And so I think that's where comprehensive plans align with, strategic initiatives. And then that's how you ultimately, benchmark it. And then, again, a lot of these things as well are outside of the realm of just government.
Right.
Like government just can't do everything, and so you got to have, partnerships with banks, and you got to have, I mentioned the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
You got to have CDCs. You have to have grassroots organizations that are also focusing on this thing, on these topics as well, which we do have.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to utilize that and develop an ecosystem,
right,
that is going to encourage those type of things that we're talking about. So we do have those studies, and a good opportunity that we're going to have with ARPA, with some of the resources that we've gotten into, is to invest in some of those things that have been called out. So let me give you a couple of examples. Like our village hall. It's been we haven't had a village hall since the roof caved into the building that was next to the library a long time ago, and since then we have been using Village Hall and our Public Works building, which is now which is on 40 West Madison Street. And so there's been opportunities on, okay, where should that go? We've had studies that said that it should be built right in that same area, right next to the Maywood Public Library, build a new building there because there's land there, and it kind of makes us right next to the police station, and it becomes like a municipal area before you, right in the heart of our downtown. The first step we would have to do in order to do that is that land is now owned by the Maywood Library. The village needs to get ownership of that land, whether we, do some sort of intergovernmental agreement about it. And then we need to, come up with a cost of what it would take to build that. And then we need to advocate for that to happen. So it's just about, taking it, step by step. And then you have people, whether it be government related or, other grassroots organizations managing the process, like the stakeholders in the community managing that process. And there's many people that'd be happy to do that. So that's one, opportunity. And then, another thing, we've talked about, infrastructure and bike lanes in our community, and making our community more walkable. So we have an infrastructure bill that is, has billions of dollars or trillions of dollars that have been allocated. I think about $17 billion to the state of Illinois. Mm-hmm. The Village of Maywood needs to get every penny possible that we're eligible for, in order to invest in that. And
is that happening?
That's our job. It is happening. So Washington Boulevard is a great example of that investment happening. Our main replacement initiative that's happening, in some of our main corridors, as well as like that under the ground infrastructure that's very old. Yeah. So, those things are very capital intensive, and we're not going to be able to afford it based on our operational budget. Right. We need a shot in the arm from the state, and we deserve it and we qualify for it. So you need to have a grant writer that is specifically focused on that. So what happens is, how this should work in theory is, every single grant that we are eligible for, we should have on a list. And then we should be getting, whether at our board meetings or our finance meetings, updates on the status of every single grant that we've applied for. And if we get it, great. And if we don't, we understand why. And so so when we do apply for other grants and resources, we understand, what we have to do to make sure that we do the next go around, receive those resources. So all those type of things are what we have to do in order to do that. But it takes a community effort.
Yeah.
It's going to take more than a board.
Right.
But that's where we also have to empower the residents, give them a voice, and
Yeah.
allow the ones that have the ability to do it. You got to let them do it.
Absolutely. I love that. Speaking of which, is a position for grant writer posted in the Village of Maywood site, or is there an interest in hiring a grant writer at this time, or is that later?
Absolutely. So there should be on our village website. You should see several opportunities on there. So I encourage anyone that's interested to go check out those opportunities. If they're not on the Village of Maywood's website, I would check some of your kind of typical hiring websites. And now since I'm live, I can't think of some of those names, but if it comes to me, I'll let you know. But those opportunities are available.
And we can make an announcement, Trustee. We can make an announcement at the next.
Yeah, no, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So I'll make sure that those type of opportunities are available. And we have hired great individuals recently to help our community development. Whether it be on the code enforcement side, which we've seen some significant improvements, and we're working on it. I promise you that. So that's my job this second term, is to leave the community better than what I found it, and I promise to do that.
Well, thanks to your efforts, that I could definitely see that vision coming to fruition. And in that same vein, I wanted to ask you in terms of, you mentioned the infrastructure bill, which includes the Washington Boulevard. That stretches from what, 9th to 21st? Is that where?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. To our eastern border until it gets to Bellwood.
Okay. So I was home recently and I saw that and I was like, good Lord, that's a lot of access being denied to business venues, residential homes, and the parks and things of that nature. Can you talk about that briefly, and as far as a timeline for those who may not know when this project planned to be completed?
Yeah, absolutely. So the project started in the spring. We were doing a complete redevelopment of Washington Boulevard from 9th Avenue to 21st. Not only did it involve what you can see, which is like the asphalt and the curb, but it's also underneath. There's sewer and electrical and plumbing infrastructure that's also being replaced. So that is a huge investment and well overdue investment for the residents that live off Washington Boulevard, but also the commuters that commute through our community. Washington Boulevard is a state road and a main access to not only the other western suburbs, but also to our suburbs to the east and the city of Chicago. Washington Boulevard goes straight through to downtown. So it's gonna be a great opportunity for our village to capitalize on that traffic count and what opportunities we have along Fifth Avenue, which is a retail space, and just utilizing those parks as well. Connor Heights Park. There's a park on 15th as well.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be good news. In terms of like feasibility, if you will. Because when we talk about feasibility, it's the first thing you got to do is fix your road so you would even have the people would like start to feel comfortable traveling down these streets, and then that's how development happens. But we have to do our part, and there's more to come. Not only does that infrastructure build not only physical infrastructure, but infrastructure that we can't see, like the digital divide, access to the internet. That's a huge opportunity as well. Although the Village of Maywood does have access to internet, but not fiber, high speed internet, and we have incredible partners, whether it be in the Village of Maywood, businesses that require that. That's how they stay competitive. In the medical space, we mentioned like Loyola Hospital, the VA. We also have other medical facilities in the region, and then also the universities and colleges around. So that's an opportunity where teaming up and collaborating with those partners give you a better opportunity to get those resources that we so much need, and that like those type of investments can really change the dynamic and the trajectory of your community.
Absolutely, and I can attest that creating partnerships and collaborative agreements and things of that nature is always a win-win, especially in the world of business and economics. So you're right about the other thing you said a few minutes ago. Government shouldn't need to do everything. Building relationship with the Chamber of Commerce, even the local businesses that some are opening up in the village and trying to bring in, attract other businesses. That's important. And I commend you for, keep pushing that envelope, collaboration, partnerships, relationships, things of that nature. And as we wind down this podcast, I just wanted to ask you, the swearing-in ceremony, as I mentioned before, is May 30th. I know Rachel Montgomery, who was also on the ticket, she was 1 vote short when it was certified. Can you talk just briefly about the status of that to the public? How does that look?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll share what I can share, and this answer is going to be a little bit political, but I think people are going to be able to get out of it what they need to. So, the Village of Maywood trustee or municipal election. There's also a school district, a high school, District 209, and other elections that are happening on April 4th.
Yes.
The results of that election were certified on April 25th. And so what happens at that point are those are the folks that are elected. You get 5 days after that election to contest to contest the results and basically say, hey, we were within that allowable threshold that says, hey, we can review these numbers and see that they're true. I'll speak for Rachel, and I do know that, she was interested in, confirming that we do get the accurate count. And so, what I will say, I feel comfortable that by April 30th, we will know definitively, who's going to be serving as village trustee. But I'm going to say, regardless of who's in that seat, my job doesn't change at all in terms of advocating for the community. Right. And part of my job is to work with my other board colleagues. Mm-hmm. And I hope whoever's in that seat, whether it be Rachel or Ray, those are the two individuals that are running for Ray Williams. Yeah. My job is going to be able to build a partnership with ourselves, right, in order to come up with the best solutions. And really, I think, as you were speaking about developing within and growing within, that's going to be a telltale sign is our board relationship has a direct and indirect impact on how we're viewed and how successful we're going to be to, folks that want to invest in our community or live in our town. So I think that's going to be, one of our challenges is continue to build cohesion, continue to bring our residents and, other experts to the table so we can come so we can deliver, excellent results. And that happens when you have all the stakeholders at the table, giving the feedback necessary to make, reasonable and sound decisions. So that's going to be my role, regardless of who kind of lands in that seat.
Fantastic. I'm glad you said that because yes, people do watch what's happening in the village board during the village board meetings and even news that's shared as it relates to the village, just like anywhere else. I mean, the internet gives you access to pretty much everything all over the world. But for those of us who grew up in Maywood, we're definitely watching, and certainly my prayers continue to go forward for Maywood to continue to grow in the right direction, and hopefully this next turn of the village business is something that's profitable, sustainable for the constituents in the community, and definitely for you and your colleagues and Mayor Booker as well in his role as mayor. And so one other note. I couldn't think of Ms. Johnson's first name. It's Sheila Johnson. So I just wanted to put that out there from the beginning. But again, Trustee Jones, I appreciate you coming on again. I wanted to give you an opportunity for expressing closing thoughts to your constituents and the community at large, if you'd like to take a minute or two. And also, how could someone contact you, reach you, if they should have any questions for you?
Okay, great. Well, Dr. Ratliff, I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity and the platform to connect with your audience, which I know a large base of that is in the village of Maywood. One, I want to thank the community for entrusting me in another opportunity to represent my hometown. It's an honor. It's something that I don't take for granted. And it's, something that I take a lot of pride in. And, I haven't been more proud of than I am now to represent our town and to be from the village of Maywood. I am so excited about the direction in which we're going and the opportunities that we have. And I'm going to continue every day to advocate, for our town. But I think the first step is to realize that it's not necessarily about us or on the board; it's about the community, and we got to get out in the community and assess our needs, and then get to work on how to solve these issues. So that's what I'm committed to. I'm all about our brand. I think our brand and access to resources are the top priorities for me. So, I think those are the things that I can add the most value to. I do have a numbers background, so I enjoy looking at numbers. I enjoy, looking at budgets and forecasts and all of that. But ultimately, it's about people and it's about working together. And so that's going to be my plan moving forward. So, again, thank you again for give me another opportunity. I'm going to be sure to always be a strong advocate of the community. And lastly, I wanted to shout out, I believe it was Randall McFarland that had shared the link to the shirt
Yeah,
that
that's
I have
a great
on
shirt.
that represents Javon Carter, who's a Proviso East graduate,
Yes,
and
sir.
also Milwaukee Bucks player. But he had a quote that I thought was really dope. He
Yes,
had
yes.
like a career game, and the announcer or the reporter came up to him and asked, "Hey, so when did you know you were locked in and you're going to have a great game?" And he said, "When I woke up." So
Yeah.
what I feel about Maywood, like, when did I know that Maywood had the opportunity to be the community that it deserves to be?
Yes.
When did I find out about our rich history and
Yes.
that I'm proud of it and I'm about to be, a catalyst for change and for progress in our community?
Absolutely.
When I woke up.
Absolutely. Oh man, what a way to end the podcast. And by the way, Brother Jones, had he playing, Javon Carter had been playing, had he not got sat out by Budenheiser, or whatever his name is, they may have won that.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about.
What was he thinking? I mean,
I don't know what that was about. That was bad coaching, and you got to make those adjustments, man. Javon's a dog,
yeah,
and we need that. They needed that intensity,
they did.
And he had been consistent. So
Yep.
but he has a treadmill mentality. He's going to continue to do the work, and so I'm hoping him well, Sterling Brown. Anyone else that's out there in terms of sports, I know they got that Maywood grit, so they'll be fine.
And continued success to Doc, Glenn Rivers, and his 76er squad, and hopefully he'll may bring home a championship, and we have another parade in Maywood.
Hey, I'm rooting for it. I would love for the 76ers to win, so Doc can come out here and we can host them a parade, and hopefully we can cut the ribbon on a newly remodeled Doc Rivers family basketball court at Connor Heights Park. I've envisioned those things, and so he's got a good shot. It depends on if Embiid is going to be healthy. He's got a knee problem right now, but the 76ers are looking good. But so are a lot of other teams. So we're gonna see what happens.
Whoever wants it the most, right? I mean, that's a great partnership to build with the hometown kid, Glenn Doc Rivers. And thank you for your vision, Trustee Jones. I love your vision for branding and access to resources, collaboration, partnership, people advocacy, and being a catalyst for the community. I love it. And thank you again for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah.
My pleasure. That ends our podcast tonight. Tune in for our next host on our next podcast on Let's Talk Maywood on Diversity Today Media. I am Dr. Reggie Ratliff. Please like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. And until next time, God bless, be safe, and good night.